The end of Italian hegemony. During the course of the Renaissance, Western Europe was Italianized. For a century, the city-states dominated the trade routes that connected the East and the West. Venetian and Genoese merchants exchanged spices and minerals from the Black Sea to the North Sea, enriching the material life of Europe. Italian products such as armor from Milan, silk from Florence, and glass from Venice were prized above all others. The ducat from Venice and the florin from Florence were universally accepted in an age where every petty prince minted his own money. The Italian peninsula exported culture in the same way it exported goods. Humanism spread throughout Europe, aided by the printing press, while Renaissance standards of art were known worldwide and everywhere imitated. The city-states shared their technology as well, as the navigational tools that would encourage the age of exploration would disseminate from Italy. But it was not in Italy that the rewards of the Renaissance were enjoyed in the long term. There, the seeds of political turmoil and military imperialism, combined with the rise of the Ottoman Turks, would prove disastrous. In 1454, the five power city-states agreed to the Peace of Lodi. This established two balanced alliances, one between Florence and Milan, the other between Venice and Naples. These states, along with the papacy, pledged mutual non-aggression for 40 years. Yet the Peace of Lodi brought little peace. Under the cover of this agreement, the powers decided to swallow up other smaller neighbors and create quasi-empires. By the end of the 40 years, the powers began to eye one another. Each expected one another to start a peninsula-wide war for dominance over all of Italy. Each of the major powers shared the dream of recapturing the glory that was Rome, and the Italians were no longer alone. The most remarkable military leader of the age was not an Italian, but an Ottoman sultan, Mehmed II, who sacked the seemingly invincible city of Constantinople and conquered the Byzantine Empire. Soon after, the Ottomans gobbled up towns and cities in a wide arc around Constantinople and began to move into the Balkan Peninsula. By 1450, they were moving on the Aegean and Adriatic. Venice was most directly affected by the Ottoman advance. Not only was their overseas empire overrun by the Ottomans, but their dominance over European trade and commerce was upset greatly. By 1480, Venetian naval supremacy was a thing of the past. The city-states might have met this challenge from the Ottomans had they been able to unite in opposing it. Successive popes pleaded for this union to start a holy war against the Turks. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 was such a shock to the world that many thought that it was the signal of the end of days. But it was the Italians themselves, rather than the Ottomans, who plunged the peninsula into those wars from which it never recovered. The Wars of Italy in 1494 to 1529. It began with Naples, Florence, and the Papal States united against the Forzas in Milan. At first, this alliance seemed little more than just another shift in balance of power. But rather than call upon Venice to balance the situation, Ludovico Sforza sought help from the French. A massive French army under the command of King Charles VII pours all over the Alps and begins to ravage Italy. Florence was forced to surrender Pisa, a humiliation that led to the overthrow of the Medici and the establishment of French sovereignty. The Papal States, save Rome, were next to be occupied, and within a year, Charles VII had conquered Naples. Venice, fearing the French, advanced upon its own power, formed an alliance with Ferdinand of Aragon, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. Italy had now become a battleground for the armies of Europe. Naples was completely conquered by the Spanish, who held power in southern Italy until the 1850s. Venice lost almost all its holdings with the exception of the city itself. Florence frequently changed hands between the French and Spanish. The final blow to the Italian hegemony was the sack of Rome in 1527 by German mercenaries. Surveying the wreckage of the Italian wars, Machiavelli ends The Prince with a plea, using lines from Petrarch. Then virtue shall boldly engage, and swiftly vanquish barbarous rage, proving the ancient and heroic pride in true Italian hearts had never died.